You are tuned into the Power Chord Hour right here on 107.9 WRFA, as well as the Power Chord Hour podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, however you're checking this out, thank you very much for checking it out. I'm your host, Anthony Merchant. We're back at it again today, and I'm very excited for this one. I have Nick Diener with me of the Swellers, of Oneder Effects. Today we are talking 15 years of the Swellers' Ups and Downsizing, which was released in September 2009. And as I was just telling Nick before we started this, I think anybody who listens to this knows I like doing kind of like album anniversary interviews, but a lot of times they're for records that came out in like 1995 or whenever they came out, and I found them years later in like college, and like this one's not. I remember buying this at FYE, Ups and Downsizing, in probably end of September, maybe early October 09. So I feel kind of old doing this, but it's such a blast. So Nick, thank you for doing this. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me. And yeah, likewise, I feel pretty old. Yeah, you mentioned, before you're 31, I'm 37. And I don't know. I think anybody with a beard, I assume, is older than me. Like, it's just like this thing from childhood. I'm like, oh, they're definitely wiser and smarter and older and have a better job than me. So, and yeah, I don't know. It's not always the case. Sometimes I have doctors and, people that are younger than me now too. That's a weird thing. And I'm just like, like, I think that's when you're getting old.
I think I am too, because I was a guest on a podcast a week or so ago, and one of the first questions was asking me how I felt when grunge blew up, like when Nirvana came out and stuff. And I had to be like, man, I found Nirvana in like 2004 when I was like in 7th grade. Like, I was not there. I was not there for the grunge boom, man. I was being born. Like,
when I discovered Nirvana,
when'd you find them?
They became like the biggest, most important rock and roll band for me. And then maybe 2 weeks later, Kurt died.
Oh, geez.
Like, I was 7 years old and my friend brought over, I don't even know what CD it was, it was so long ago. And I was super unfamiliar. It might've been In Utero or, whatever was closest. It was kind of one of those CD of the month club things that his older brother belonged to. And he would bring over stuff every time he came to my house. And I was just like, this is it, man. Like, Nirvana, this is like my music. And then MTV is just on the TV in the background, because my parents were like, well, the kids like music, like MTV can just be on, something we do. And then it's like Kurt Loder or whoever it was on MTV News just being like, Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain. And I was telling a friend the other day, like, that's like, I think the first person I was aware of that died in my lifetime. Wow. Like, I had no like family or friends, that had passed away, in my childhood. So Kurt Cobain was the first guy. I just got into his music, and then it was like also trying to figure out how to like mourn the loss of somebody that creates art that you like, and also not understanding what happened. It was a weird time, 1994, but pretty formative for me still.
That's heavy. I mean, that's quite a. Yeah. I mean, to find a band 2 weeks before that, and I mean, on top of that, even you're adding like the concept of death on top of that and trying to process that is like really intense. Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. Nirvana and Meatloaf were my two, my number one and number two for sure. Still are to this day. I'll be honest.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, again, it's crazy to think about this album being. I honestly had to look it up once or twice, because as I was asking you to do this, I was like, this album really come out? And I'm like, am I doing the math right? Has it been 15 years? But yes, it is very much so been 15 years now. So let's, we'll get into, we'll also talk about what you're doing presently too, because you're doing a lot of cool stuff now, but let's go back in time a little bit for this. Just kind of starting out, how long after the release of My Everest were you kind of starting to think about what would become Ups and Downsizing? Maybe you probably weren't even at the name yet, but like how long after that record and kind of playing off that where you're like, you know what, probably time for the next one?
I think we were just constantly writing after My Everest, and we were just constantly on tour as well. So I feel like most of the stuff was written in like in the back of the van with a guitar, and I would even say backstage at a show, but there wasn't really ever a backstage. It was kind of just like you were in the back alleyway or, out there with everybody by the merch. But yeah, 2007, My Everest. And then I want to say like in 2008, that might have been when we had like a handful of songs and recorded demos with Mark Mahalik, who recorded Ups and Downsizing and My Everest and the EP before that, Beginning of the End Again. So we did these 3 songs that pretty much, I want to say it was Fire Away, Sleeper, and Feet First. And those were like our 3 bangers. And we were like, oh yeah, these, and we made them sound really good and tried to make them really well produced. And yeah, and that was when I started kind of sending out emails to, you know, whoever I could to be like, hey, we're this band. Here's our tour history. And here are 3 songs. And I made the email super short. I think a lot of bands make the mistake of being like, hey, we're kind of this pop punk, but kind of an emo. And we're from this town, but really, we don't really. And we're blue collar, but we're actually, and it's just like, here's the tour dates. They're in a PDF attached. And then here's the 3 songs. They're in MP3s attached. Looking for a new home for our next record. Thanks. And that was it. So, and the tour history, mind you, was like several pages long, even though it was only 3 years of touring, but it was like 3 years of 9 months out of the year of touring. So I think for any label to see hundreds of shows, along with these 3 songs that sounded good, I was like, oh, that is pretty impressive, you know? And yeah, Johnny Minardi was the head of A&R at Fueled by Ramen. And it was this weird thing because he grew up with my cousin Sal outside of Chicago. And Sal, my cousin, older cousin, got me into punk rock in the first place. Punk rock and ska, probably in like the mid 90s, late 90s. And a couple years into that, I want to say early 2000s, he was like, my buddy Johnny started this record label called, it was at one point it was called Little League Recordings. And then I think it changed the name to LLR. And they had a bunch of bands. They might have even done something with this little band called Fall Out Boy, like a split or something, a local Chicago band, real small. And I was like, well, that's cool. And I remember emailing Johnny Minardi in 2002. I was 15 years old. The Swellers had just started. And I said, here's my mp3.com page. Here's my music. I'm cousins with your friend, Sal. And he actually replied, this is so cool. Great work. Keep going and like stay in touch. And, you know, and I was like, that's cool, you know, right on. And yeah, so flash forward, I think, 6 years. I mentioned that too. I was like, hey, you know, this is Sal's cousin. Here's my new stuff. And here's the tour history. Like we kept at it, you know? And yeah, he replied just like, these songs are awesome. That tour history is crazy. Let's talk. And I was like, whoa, like it worked, you know, like we got someone's attention. And around that same time, he also mentioned that Haley from Paramore had been aware of us and also told him about us.
Oh, nice.
So with my email with new music and with her being like, hey, through the grapevine, there's this band, check them out. That was like 2 different people coming at him about us. And yeah, it was kind of like, all right, we got them on the hook and we kept writing. We had a bunch of songs in the pocket and we talked to a couple other labels. We talked to Epitaph Records, which was I would say our number 1 choice, like our favorite label ever. And, you know, getting to talk to Brett Gurwitz from Epitaph, who's in Bad Religion and signed so many bands. And, you know, he told us, he's like, hey, that song, Do You Feel Better Yet? He's like, that's a hit, man. That's a power pop hit. And I was like, dude, I can't believe this guy said this about a song that I wrote. And I think I'm fast forwarding a little bit. This was actually after the record was recorded, when we were talking to Epitaph. And we ultimately decided to go with Fueled by Ramen because Epitaph kind of casually mentioned, like, we're in the process of signing a lot of great punk rock bands this year. And we were like, cool. And then we talked to Fueled by Ramen and we were like, who else are you signing this year? And they were like, oh, no one, just you guys. And we were like, I think that they're going to spend some time and special attention on us instead of throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and seeing what stuck. But yeah, and if I go back a little bit further, and I'll finally shut up about this part of the story.
Oh, I love hearing this stuff.
We, I don't know, Fueled by Ramen was just kind of like, yeah, you know, like, let's keep talking. Like, yeah, like, excited to see what you guys are doing. Cool, you're still touring? Awesome. Send us some more demos. And at one point, I just kind of said, hey, Johnny, we're going to go make our record now. Like, with or without you, with or without any label, I'm going to go crazy if I don't get in the studio and make these songs happen. And he was just like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. So we got in the studio and we recorded drums and I think drums and guitars in Michigan. And then I think bass and vocals and overdubs in Chicago. So Johnny was in Chicago and he came to the recording process like in the last couple of days of us tracking in Chicago, and we played him a couple new songs, and he was just like, you know, great. Like, this is actually going to speed up the process of us talking, you know? And I think he got a parking ticket that day. And we also had to talk about how, kind of full circle. We were just talking about Nirvana, how he was talking about how he didn't get Nirvana. Like, he's just like, I don't get it. And I was like, dude, what the hell, man? Like, go back and listen to it. Like, blah, blah, blah. And then like 10 or 15 years later, it was probably 10 years later, Johnny got a hold of me and he was like, hey, just wanted to let you know, I get and love Nirvana now. Like, it clicked finally. And I was like, oh, that's cool that he even remembered, you know, that conversation. But yeah, so we had our record recorded and we were like, are we good with this record, you know, being recorded and mixed by Mark Mahalik? And he's just like, dude, yeah, like, this is like a label's dream. Like, we don't have to put up money for a record and like have a bunch of stuff like invested into it. And like, we could put it toward promotion and all that kind of stuff instead. And then like, I remember Epitaph being like, yeah, the record's like a great demo for the real record. And I was just like, I don't feel like recording that thing again, you know? And the thing was, Epitaph was going to give us a lot more money than Fueled by Ramen was going to. But we ended up kind of negotiating up, and Fueled by Ramen ended up giving us a nice fair amount. And yeah, they were the label that we ended up going with. And it was the record we recorded on our own dime. So that was kind of cool.
That's, you know, like I'm thinking back, and I mean, again, thinking you guys all probably got to be in like it'd be early 20s or like mid 20s.
Yeah.
I mean, you seem like you had a lot of clarity in this, where like even that, like having that idea where it's like, hey, Fueled by Ramen's not signing a bunch, like even that, like to me, that's like pretty wise to even go, well, you know, if this label's signing, I don't know, 10 bands this year, it's us against 9 other bands, like for the attention and the promotion and stuff. Like even that was kind of smart to be like, this label's not doing anything with another band. They'll probably give us more attention, like that, and going and kind of recording without a label. And it seemed, I don't know, from an outsider perspective, it sounds like you kind of had a vision for everything. It wasn't like I don't know, the label dragged you along and said, hey, do this, go do this. We need a single here. Do you think that was accumulation of just the few, you know, a couple releases before that? Like, do you feel like you learned, like, I don't know, I'm just hearing you say this and you sound very level-headed and clear for a band still fairly young at that time. I mean, do you feel like you kind of picked things up on the first couple albums and releasing those and working with other labels and stuff to kind of figure out what you wanted?
Yeah, I think it was a mix of us really wanting to do what we wanted to do, and then also really wanting to be a big band. Like that, we were trying to ride that line, and we knew, yeah, like you said, we'd be just kind of another star in the galaxy on Epitaph. And we probably would have done like a handful of cool punk tours and got some good publicity. But we did that, you know, on Fueled by Ramen anyway. So that was cool. But yeah, we got opened up to, you know, the Paramore world, and, you know, just, we ended up touring with Motion City Soundtrack a bunch of times, you know, and they were an Epitaph band. So, you know, we got to do that too already. But yeah, I think it was more like, if we don't sign to Fueled, like Fueled was like the thing that I don't think anyone thought we were going to do, because we were kind of a melodic skate punk band. And we were kind of like, I think it'll be shocking and it might take our band to the next level. And, yeah, and recording the record on our own, I think we just had ants in our pants, and we didn't want to sit around, because like in our head back then, it was like, you need a release every 2 years or you will die. And same thing was like, stay on tour all the time, never take a break. So those were our two, mantras. And we were like, well, we need this record. And I think we recorded it in like January, February 2009. And it came out September 29th, 2009. So it kind of sat for some time. I think we got it mastered by somebody like really legit, like put some good money into the mastering, because we were like, okay, if we can put some money towards something, it would be that. But yeah, the whole record was probably recorded for like $4 or $5 grand, which is like nothing. It's for how many days we spent in the studio. And I retracked a bunch of stuff. I blew out my voice like a couple days into it and had to retrack, I think, Feet First, and I think I had to retrack Dirt. And actually, Fire Away, most of those vocals are from the demo.
Really?
We kept it the same tempo and in the same key. And it was a day where my voice was just hurting. And I was angry. And I was like, Mark, do you have the vocals from the demo? And he was like, yeah. And he like just popped them in. And I was like, great, grand, print it. And I think we added some like backup vocals and stuff. But yeah, a lot of that was from like a 2008 recording using a different microphone, but it still sounded good. So yeah, that's something I hadn't thought about in a long time. But yeah, I was 21 going on 22. And my brother was 20 years old. And that was, we kind of didn't know what we were doing, but we just knew we had to just keep going.
It's not, it sounds like you at least, even if you didn't know, all the answers and stuff, at least you had, I feel like you guys maybe looked ahead a little more than some bands that age might, where they might have more of that short term, like again with that, where it's like, oh, Epitaph, yeah, let's sign with that. Maybe we'll go on tour with Bad Religion, but not thinking of all the other kind of things. So yeah. Credit to you guys for sure. I did want to go back for a second and ask you, because you were like talking about writing on the road. And I was thinking it's interesting because I know sometimes you have to, it's not a case of if you want to or you don't, but did you like writing on the road? Because sometimes I talk to people and they're like, no, we have to separate that. Like I will not, if I'm on the road, I'm not writing. And if I'm writing, obviously I'm not on the road. But did you did you mind writing while touring, or was it more of a, hey, we just got to do this? Like you were saying, we need an album out every 2 years. We almost just have to write right now because you're also touring 10 months out of the year.
Yeah. I've never been someone who like sits down and then says, and now I will write. Or I know some people are like that, they're like, all right, we're going to have a little writing sesh. We're going to see what we got. But for me, I was actually just, talking to my buddy Trevor from the band A Wilhelm Scream.
Oh, nice.
And I toured with them. I filled in on bass when I was like 18. And that was like my first nationwide long tour. And there'd be times we'd be driving and it'd be like almost time to fill up on gas. And he'd be like, all right, guys, I'll be back. And he would walk away with the tape recorder. And I would just hear him being like, and like mumbling. And then he would come back and be like, all right. And I'm like, hey, like, what are you doing? And he's like, have to get that idea onto tape so I can go revisit it later. Like I'll forget it, but I had a really great idea. And I was like, well, that's cool. And then I realized I kind of do something similarly. And nowadays I think people do it on like the recording app on their phone. They don't really carry around a tape recorder, but yeah, I would have like chords and melodies come to me at the same time. And that's kind of how I write, and lyrics come way later. So that was, so I guess we can differentiate that. I can compose and arrange an entire song while on the road. I know what I want the drums to sound like loosely. And, my brother, the drummer, we had that language where I'm like, do this kind of beat and then do that, and then do this. And then he'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll make it make sense. And then guitar, rhythm guitar, bass, octaves, where the lead happens, where the little ding-a-lingy comes in, what the vocal's doing, where the vocal harmonies come in. No lyrics at all. But then I jam through it a couple times. Words start to take shape just because of how they sound in my head to the melody, even though I don't know what the song is about. And by the way, I thought this was a very strange thing. Like I thought I was alone in the universe doing this kind of thing. And then I found out a ton of people in like bigger bands write just like this. And when I found that out, we were actually recording our 2011 record, Good For Me, at the blasting room. And I was kind of going through something and I didn't have all the lyrics fleshed out. And I said, I just keep coming to these words in the chorus. And I'm just like, I know that's dumb, but like, that's just what I sing. And I think that's going to be in the song. And Bill was just like, Bill Stevenson, from Black Flag Descendants, you know, producer, drummer extraordinaire. He was like, oh, you know who else does that? And he played me a pre-production version of the song Ready to Fall by Rise Against.
Oh, no.
And it was Tim McElrath, and he'd probably be embarrassed to hear that, you know, he played that for us. But it's him being like, like gibberish while the band played. And then the chorus would come in and you hear him, ready to fall. And he was saying ready to fall when there were no words. And that stayed. And then by the last chorus, he had a couple more words and you start to fill in the gaps. And I was like, okay, so that apparently that's a way some people's brains work. And that's how I work. So yeah, I can write an entire record on the road. Don't care where I am. Don't need to record it. If it's good enough, I'll remember it. But when it comes to lyrics, I do have to sit down. And I could do it in the studio or on tour, but it's a lot better if I can focus and, you know, really think about it. Lyrics have always been, I don't want to say the least important thing, and I don't want to say that they're an afterthought, but my face is just an instrument. So the words are just something that have to happen because people usually want words. They don't want me just humming into a microphone. And I thought that was weird of me to say too. And then I found out that that's what Kurt Cobain thought as well. And I was like, well, cool. I don't feel so alone. You know, it's like, if I didn't have to use words, I wouldn't. And that's something Kurt said. So I was like, all right, I guess I have that's my writing style. And some other people have that too. And I don't think I'll ever be I write a page of lyrics and then write a song musically around that. Like that's like a Bob Dylan thing, or maybe even like, you know, Dan from the Wonder Years. I feel like he's one of those people who can have all the lyrics ready to go. And then the band is like, time to create around this. That's like from his vocal and lyrical style. It kind of seems like that, like maybe more of a songwriter, whereas I'm more of a composer, arranger. You know, like it sounds a little pretentious, but that's just how I write, I guess.
Would you say that pretty much throughout the entire kind of Swellers career that like, you know, your songwriting process kind of stayed consistent throughout? I mean, was there a huge shift from like writing that first record to like writing the last record, or pretty much was that how you kind of wrote the same way all the way through the band's existence?
Yeah, I think the only thing that really changed was I think my brother became a little bit more involved writing every record. A lot of times we were 50-50, where it would be like I would have a bunch of this stuff written and my brother would have like the bridge of a song written. And sometimes he would have words written out without music. And he would kind of send me like some words and I was like, these will fit into something I'm doing. Can I use those? And he's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then a lot of times I would just write a song 100% me. And then, you know, he would add drums. And then sometimes he would write a song, let's say 90%. And then I would kind of go in and tweak a couple things. So it'd be like a Jono song versus a Nick song. But of course, like, you know, we put our own little touches on it. But yeah, toward the end, I think we just cared less what people thought, like musically. We're like, well, we don't have to be the fast band all the time. And we don't have to, you know, cater to anybody, which is a lesson, you know, I kind of wish younger bands and us knew way earlier. Like, you don't have to try to fit a mold just because your fans or even you think that you're supposed to be a certain way. Because like when I finally let go and wrote whatever I wanted to write after the Swellers, it sounded completely different, you know? And I was like, oh man, I kind of wish Swellers would have done some of this stuff. The song High Low is on our last record, The Light Under Closed Doors. And there's a baritone guitar and it's kind of sludgy and slow. And that was me trying to peep in and be like, if the Swellers could sound a certain way, this is how it would actually sound. So it's kind of cool listening back, except for the fact that I'm yelling my head off in the chorus, because of course that's what I thought I had to do. And yeah, but we were little kids. So you live and you learn.
Well, I also wanted to get back to like Ups and Downsizing, but kind of talking about, songwriting dynamics in the band and stuff. Obviously, this is the first album with Anto and Ryan. That lineup change and stuff, did that change anyway? Do you feel like writing this album? I mean, was there any, I guess, difference in the writing or recording or putting it together, or was that lineup change, did it affect things in any way, or no, not really?
Well, Anto joined the band after Ups and Downsizing was recorded.
Oh, okay.
And we had a bass player for about 10 months named Baby Bradley. Brad, but we called him Baby Bradley, and awesome, good friend of ours. And he was just happened to be in the band before we made the record, was there when we made the record. So he played bass on it. I think I might've played bass on like 2 songs. Because like sometimes we wrote stuff on the fly and we were just kind of like, well, we should probably, instead of teaching someone, it'd be easier if I just did it real quick. And then, right before we were going to sign to Fueled by Ramen, probably a couple months before, like he decided like, I don't think I can do the touring thing after all. And then, we ended up getting Anto soon after that. But I think, Ryan and Anto are just both great guitar and bass players, but the Swellers were kind of like I play guitar and write the songs, and Jono plays drums and writes the songs, and anybody else in the band is going to be able to take a couple of liberties, but not that many. Like, play the song, but stay within like the confines of what makes sense, like don't go off like, riffing during the middle of a verse when it steps over the vocals. There's a lot of, we've had, band members in different bands and things in the past where some people don't have that intuition. Like they don't know that a part sucks, or they don't know that a part's going to clash with something else. But Ryan and Anto, when we kind of teach them the songs, they know exactly what to do, and it fit us really well. So when, Ryan played on the record, he's just a solid ham-fisted right-handed rhythm guitar player, and it fit perfectly. There was nothing that he could do wrong. And also just the way we played guitar together was really cool. I didn't realize till years later, but our stops and starts, they're just different enough in style that it makes it sound like a live band. And it sounds better than just being completely tight or edited or anything like that. And Anto is still a little bit bitter that he didn't get to play on Ups and Downsizing, because like people will say like, oh, that record rules, good job, Anto, and he's just like, like I wasn't there yet, but the songwriting after that, I think it kind of just stayed the same. Every once in a while those guys would write a couple, a cool bass line or a cool guitar riff, and we're like, sweet. There was never really a time that we were like, no, don't do that, because they just kind of knew what to do. It's kind of cool.
Obviously that that did stay the lineup for the rest of, the Swellers' existence. And I mean, right there, we were kind of talking about it, but what would you kind of credit for the 4 of you for that kind of, that, I don't know, at least to me, when I think of the Swellers, that's a lineup I think of the 4 of you guys. Like,
oh, cool.
What do you kind of credit with, obviously, that lasting till the end and that kind of working, with those 2?
The first thing we look for when looking for a new band member was a road dog who has been on tour a lot in the past and will want to be on tour a lot from then on. So Ryan played guitar in a band called Alucard, and we did like 3 tours with them, I think in 2007 alone. And then toward the end of 2007, I think we were losing our guitar player, or we lost our bass player, and Ryan filled in on bass with the intention of playing guitar once our guitar player left. Because, we toured for like a solid 1.5, 2 years with our 2 older band members. And I don't want to say they weren't cut out for life on the road. They were great on tour, but they just they wanted a different life, you know, and they just kind of wanted to play other music for fun on the side. So, you know, can't fault them for that. But yeah, getting Ryan, we were like, dude, that dude's got nothing else going. And that's not an insult. Like, that's my brother and I, the same thing. You know, it's like, we got nothing else, no plan B. We want to be on the road and play guitar and drums or whatever. So Ryan was that guy. And then, yeah, with Anto, it was so funny. When Baby Bradley quit the band, I called up Ryan and my brother, and I was kind of like, we can't tell anybody that we're down a bass player. We're about to sign a very big record deal, and we're about to go on tour for a very long time. We don't want to scare anybody, booking agents, bands, labels. Like, we're not talking about this. We're going to figure it out. And of course, Ryan went ahead and called his guitar player in his old band, Alucard, who ended up talking to a guy who was in Canada in a Canadian band who was like, oh yeah, it was Mike from a Wilhelm Scream who had joined a Wilhelm Scream. And I think he talked to Brian Robinson, who was the bass player of a Wilhelm Scream, who used to be in the band The Full Blast. And then Brian talked to Ian Stanger, who was the owner of a record label, I think Black Box Recordings, and he was the singer of The Full Blast. And then he talked to Anto Boros, the bass player of a band called Sydney, that basically said out loud several times, if I could join any band, it would be the Swellers. I would drop anything. So I think that game of telephone took maybe 40 minutes.
Oh,
like,
geez.
It was like, don't tell anyone. And I get a call from Canada, and it's Anto, and he's like sweating. And I'm like, dude, isn't this going to cost like a lot of money? He just called me flat up, you know, Canada to the States, like, especially back then, like, not a free thing.
No.
And I was like, dude, what? Oh my God. Like, we haven't even processed this, and we haven't even thought of it. And like, you're in Canada. What are the logistics of this? And I just kind of kept thinking like, I really do like this guy, and I really get along with him. Andy is a good bass player. So I was kind of just like, all right, man, when do you think you could be here with songs like ready to go? And he was like, in a couple weeks, I can be there, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how about this Friday? Because we got a show with Propagandy and Strike Anywhere. And he was like, what? And like, yeah, it was like super soon. He like learned 8 songs, got on stage with us, played a really big show. And we were like, that went really well. That was cool. And I kind of feel like a dick now thinking about it, because we kept telling him, I don't know, like, maybe we won't have you sign the contract. Maybe, you know, we're just gonna kind of have you as a hired gun, because we don't know. Like, we haven't been on tour with you before. It's all so new. But right before we signed the contract, I think we all looked at each other and we're like, nah, this is a thing. Like, this is going to be us. Like, let's do it. Like, this is working, you know? And yeah, he's another one of those people that we were like, you know, given the chance, he would stay on the road forever, you know, whether we are making money or not. And that's a rare, kind of hard thing to find. So I don't know how I did it, honestly. Like, I look back and I'm like, that's absolutely insane behavior, but
you toured nonstop. I mean, yeah, I did. I think of seeing you guys, I mean, I saw you a lot in like Buffalo throughout your years. And I mean, even thinking of in a small window of time, like we're even going to get into right now. I mean, we'll talk about like touring on Ups and Downsizing, but like I saw you guys in like January 2010 at Mohawk Place. You did like a one-off with Punchline. It wasn't even a tour. You just, I don't know what happened that you were on the bill, but it was just kind of a thing. But like on top, after that, like it was the first time seeing you. In between then and like 2015, I mean, I don't even know how many damn times I saw you live. You guys always seemed like you're on the road, either headlining or opening for a band or, you know, whatever. So like, you know, touring on Ups and Downsizing, I mean, how soon, maybe you were on the road when it was released, but how soon after this came out, were you hitting the road? Because even that Mohawk Place show was like, I think 4 months after the album was out. So I know you released on the road 4 months later.
Yeah, we put out the record September 29th. 2009, which was the same day that Paramore's Brand New Eyes album came out.
Oh, nice.
And that was the day we started our tour with Paramore. So
exact day.
and even before that, honestly, like that was in LA where we started the tour. So I think we had 2 weeks of shows leading up to the LA show, kind of getting across the country, which actually I haven't thought about that in a long time. But I remember things were different because people knew we were on Fueled by Ramen, and we were playing a show. I think it might have been a headliner in Denver, and there was a bunch of like hardcore kids, which were like our fans and friends, punks and hardcore people, whatever, in the back, kind of, you know, folding their arms ready. And then there was like a bunch of 12 and 13-year-old girls with like signs and stuff like pressed up against the front of the stage, which was something we never had before. But, you know, because Paramore said, check out this band, and Fueled by Ramen said, check this out. And of course, when we signed, you know, there was a lot of blowback from Fueled by Ramen fans being like, these guys look like normal guys. Like, they don't have cool pants or hair. Like, what is this shit? And then likewise, you know, from punk rockers being like, why would this great punk rock band sign to like such a crappy teeny bopper label? You know, so there was a lot of that. But yeah, that was the show where we saw a really big divide, and it was kind of cool. Like teeny bopper stuff meets hardcore stuff, and it did not stop the pitting and the crowd surfing and the stage diving. So the little kids who basically this might have been their first show ever, you know, they might have got a face full of, you know, Reeboks coming off the stage from somebody. But yeah, we made it out to LA and played one show with Paramore. Then they canceled a week of the tour.
Oh.
So, yep, Haley blew out her voice, and it was like this whole thing. There might have been other factors, but we drove home from LA to Michigan, which is 38-hour drive.
I was gonna say it's a long drive,
and we did that so many times in the Swellers. We did LA to Michigan, LA to Philly, no big deal, all the time. Don't know how we did it. We were just on autopilot. Went home for like a week. Well, you know, it took us 2.5 days to drive home. Hung out for 4 days, and then the tour started again in Chicago. And then they said, we're going to take all those weeks of shows that we canceled and tack them to the end of the Paramore tour. So we're going to start in Chicago, East Coast, South, and then we're going to head back west to Los Angeles. And we're like, okay. And that butted into our Less Than Jake tour. So full month of touring with Paramore. Again, it ends in LA. We start the Less Than Jake tour in Philadelphia, a 45-hour drive. So yeah, back across the country, toured with them for 4 or 5 weeks. And then it was like holiday time, Christmas time. And then, yeah, I think we did a couple shows here and there, like in January and February. And then I think the next one, oh no, might have been February, was Motion City Soundtrack, Set Your Goals, This Providence tour.
Yeah.
So we didn't stop, you know, it was like, go, go, go. And then I think April, maybe it was 2010, that might have been H2O. Ooh. And us. So yeah, you know, a bunch of different bands. So Less Than Jake, Paramore, H2O, Motion City Soundtrack. We were doing any and all touring. And then 2010, Warped Tour 2010 did that summer. And so yeah, just there, I mean, that's already 9 months essentially straight. You know, we were never home for more than 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And yeah, we pretty much did that all the way up until we recorded the next record. Pretty wild.
I mean, yeah. This is kind of, I think about this with bands like, I mean, talking about that, like how much you had to travel to tour. When the band was over, I mean, even now, do you enjoy like traveling and getting to do things, or did you kind of, I don't know, when you tour like that, and I do realize there's a difference of like, when you're doing that, you can't stop and see everything, and you're not a tourist so much, but doing that much touring, I mean, did that affect your outlook on traveling later on, or do you enjoy, can you road dog it now? Is a road trip fun to you, or you're like, oh no, I can't do this anymore, I did too much of this for the Swellers?
Yeah, I don't hesitate 1 second to book myself a flight instead of drive. Like, even if it's like a 6-hour drive, I'll be like, no, you know what? I work hard for my money, and I want to get a nice little flight, you know? Yeah, things like that. Yeah, I'm not sleeping on floors anymore. I won't do that. We should have gotten hotels in my band. We barely ever got hotels. We crashed on people's floors and couches.
Really?
And I think a lot of people think that, a band our size, we would have gotten hotels every night. We got maybe 2 hotels a month, if that.
geez.
And I kind of don't know why we were such penny pinchers. And I think that was my fault. Like, it was my call. Like, we are not going to waste any money. Because to me, comfort was a waste. Like, we can sleep in the van. Like, we don't need beds. Of course, now looking back, I would have loved to come home with zero money and have stayed in hotels every show. That would have been fine, because coming home from a tour with $800 in your pocket seemed like a big deal back then to me. But in hindsight, like, that could have been money spent on having a better time. Maybe my band wouldn't have burnt out and ended when it did. You never really know. So yeah, I like the fact that I know how to travel and where to go. I have some favorite spots, places that I don't want to go for long periods of time. Some people will be like, let's spend a week in, Austin, Texas or something, and I would be like, Austin's great. 2 to 3 days might be max. That's all you need. And then, hey, go to Dallas, go to San Antonio, branch out, go do some of the other stuff. Or like someone's like, I'm going to go to Ireland for 2 weeks. And I'm like, Ireland, awesome. Spend 4 days there. Hop over to, Scotland, go down to take the train down to London. Heck, get to Paris in that 2 weeks. Like, there's so much stuff that's closer than you think. And I think a lot of people book vacations. Like, they even do like 7 days at Disney World. And you're like, 7 days, dude? Like, it's a theme park. That's a lot of people and a lot of walking and not that many rides. And so there's, I'm kind of a good travel agent, I think.
For doing it so long, I had not thought of this in a while, I actually have to credit either you or your brother between ages, again, I'm 31, and between ages like 23 to 30, I drove besides Hawaii, I drove to all 50 states. Like, that was my goal. At all 50 states. But what I did, and I credit you guys for this, it was either you and your brother, but the Planet Fitness card. You get showers all over the country with a Planet Fitness fucking account. So like sleeping in Walmart parking lots and taking showers at Planet Fitness was how I basically afforded to go 50 states. But like, that's awesome. That was either you or your brother talking about it on either Twitter or an interview or something. And I vividly remember it was someone in the Swellers. You can get showers all over the country with a $10 Planet Fitness card. Smartest investment to do if you're traveling.
It's a really cool thing. And also, like, I would 100% invite anybody who has the opportunity to do what you did. Drive everywhere, see everything. It's such a cool thing. And of course, like, the band really helped me be able to do that. And I definitely experience a lot of heartache thinking about the fact that I'm probably never going to see this random truck stop over the hill in Albuquerque, New Mexico again. Like, I'm never going to drive through US 50 into a town called Austin, Nevada. That's a ghost town that has like, watch out for mine shaft signs. Probably never going to be there again. So there's things that I got to see, and I'm, thankful for even just little things that, were an afterthought, like, or, I wouldn't give a second thought. And now I'm just like, oh God, that would be cool to just, drive on that crappy ass highway again, just to see some of this stuff and, feel that again. I have a really big attachment to places and spaces, and not even like so much a nostalgia thing, but just like and it's not like I have this cosmic energy or something, but it's just like, it really means a lot for me to be back somewhere and, just kind of try to remember stuff and feel those things again. But yeah, the gym showers. I had a friend who was homeless in Los Angeles, living out of her car, and she had a membership to a gym that was like $10 a month. So she had a bathroom and a shower and towels, and then would be in her car. And she ended up, and she's from Saginaw, Michigan originally, and was out there trying to be a drummer. basically living out of a car. And she ended up getting the gig to play drums for Kelly Osbourne in like 2001. And then she wound up playing drums for Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana, Selena Gomez, went from gym showers to that, so it's like, amazing. It's like the American dream, for a girl from Saginaw. Pretty awesome. And now she's an announcer in the WWE.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, life takes you some weird places.
It really does. And even as you were talking about a second ago, I started kind of having those where like you're in a random place in Kansas and you're like, I've been to this Casey's like truck stop before. Like this looks familiar. Like, oh, that's because I've for some reason been in this obscure Kansas town that had a Casey's. Like that's why this looks familiar. But
and by the way, I should mention her name, Alicia Warrington. That's the drummer from Saginaw. And what's funny is the first time I saw her in person, she was attending a very small wrestling show outside of Saginaw. And she has like really cool hair, like that you can see from like a mile away. And I was like, oh my God, that's the drummer girl. Like she rips, like she's so good. And I was like, why is she at this wrestling show with, 30 people, just big wrestling fan. And we kind of met and talked, mutual friends, blah, blah, blah. And fast forward, yeah, she's an announcer in the WWE, and it's like, oh, cool. And I think she has some other stuff behind the scenes, like management and like talent booking and things like that, kind of doing some cool stuff. Yeah. So, and I mean, same thing with me, not to get ahead, but building guitar pedals, never thought in a million years I would be here. Like I didn't know how to solder until a couple months before I started this thing. And then it's blown up into an empire. So it's, I kind of like that, the whole, how did I get here? This wasn't on the vision board.
Wasn't that kind of crazy? Because as much touring as you did and all the road dogging and all the like places you saw, I mean, that was in the grand scheme of life, a fairly small window. You know what I mean? I mean, you guys were at it for a while, but in the sense of, it was your 20s into your, were you in your 30s before you guys broke up or even 30?
28. Yeah.
Okay, so even that, look at how much you did before 28. Like, is it to then look at this, like just a window or a sliver of your life? That's kind of crazy.
And it's kind of weird. I think about it now and it's almost like I'm a decade behind because of that. Like, I mean, I have a decade more experience maybe than a lot of people. So you would think like, wow, you got all that in, but I also missed my 20s. Like I did not have a normal life. Being away from my family and friends for as long as I was, my girlfriend at the time who ended up becoming my wife, being gone away from her for so long. Also just being like, 19, 20 years old, trying to impress the grown men at record labels who tell you you're going to be a star and like you write good songs and keep going. And, there's just so much stuff that's weird about literally just, and it's not like I was ever on some giant stage and like experiencing fame, but it was like the want to have that and literally being on stage in a spotlight night after night, having people come up to you and tell you, you're great. I like your band. I'm giving you money by buying your merch. Like, can't wait to see what you do next. Like pressure. And then I hit 28 and then it's done. And I was just knocked out. Like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who I was. Like I wanted the band to get back together so bad because I didn't know. And I wasn't like actually going to try because I knew that would look crappy. They were gone a year and they're back. Because we kind of made a big deal. Like we have one more year left of touring. But I don't know. I was just kind of like, well, okay, we'll give it like 3 years. And then I got to be the singer guy again. I got to be the guy with the guitar on the stage because I don't know what to do or who I am. And then, kind of took some soul searching and figuring things out and kind of found my place in the music world. And as a family person, had a kid and now 2 kids. And now it's almost the opposite where I feel like I'd be terrified to be on stage again. Like I haven't written music in over 7 years, like maybe a little song for fun here and there. I just completely moved away from that. And it was almost like this like mental block, not like a writer's block, but just like I'm not song guy. I'm not guitar song and dance man anymore. But I'm getting the itch again to make my own music again. Because I have a recording studio that I also kind of put on the back burner because of the pedal business. Made some really kind of decently big records, some cool stuff in my studio too. So I'm really lucky to have done that. But yeah, I think I'm going so hard right now. Next year, I'm going to give myself the break and the grace to make a record, because I've got songs in my head. I need to just get them out, put it on vinyl, even if it's just a 7-inch. It might have to be a 12-inch because I think the songs are going to be really long, low tuned, sludgy pop, shoegazy. Yeah, it's if you like the Swellers, you're gonna hate this. That's gonna be my tagline. But yeah, to put a bow on that. Yeah, didn't know who I was. Took a long time to get back to feeling like a person again, and honestly, maybe a person for the first time. Without getting too heavy. Like, my 30s are my 20s, and I'm going through adolescence trying to figure it out, 10 years later than everybody. And I really feel like that. Like, it's a really weird thing to have had this like semi-permanent life where I was just moving. And yeah, so it's like after I hit 30 and had my kid, that's when I was like, and now it begins. Like, now this is where life starts and everything actually matters to me now. So yeah, I feel a lot better now, but really happy to have done the stuff in the 20s,
To go off that for a second, and then I do want to talk about the pedals, and we'll kind of, start getting into what you're doing presently here. Sure. But, with something like that, do you almost feel like it would have been possible for the Swellers to go on as long, and really almost anyone who pursues that, who's like, I'm going to get in a band, we're going to tour our asses off, we're going to try to make this happen. Do you feel like it would have been possible to do any other way than putting your head down and just, this is my life? Like, do you think
my light went off? Battery ran out. As long as this one doesn't run out, we'll be good. I'll have to figure something out, but
we're all good.
Okay, right on. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just thinking about that, and I'm like, I think the drive that makes somebody, it's like you were talking about finding a lineup with people who, yeah, touring sounds fun for 3 months. Will you still enjoy it on month 15? Like, do you think the Swellers and just kind of being in music in general for all those years, do you think you could have done it another way? Because in some ways, I'm on the outside looking in, so you have a better perspective. But like, I almost wonder if you could have gone where you did without putting your head down and just making that your life for all your 20s. Not just half-assing and going, sometimes I do this and then I dabble with this. Even if you were doing like the pedals and stuff, like, well, I do the band sometimes, when I do the pedals, and I produce, and then I go do this and that. Yeah. Could you have done that, or did it almost have to go the way it did, if that makes sense?
It's kind of a weird thing to navigate, because it's like, I wish somebody would have told us we could take a break. I don't remember anybody ever being like, hey, take 2 years off. It's not going to be the worst thing in the world. But even if they did tell us that, I feel like I would have been like, hell no, we would die. Because back then, I mean, that's the only thing I knew. I was quite literally on autopilot, to the point where like I would sleep in the van, in the back bench, while all my guys slept inside at somebody's house. And I would wake up, piss in a water bottle, text everybody, let's go. They would get in the van. I'd be in the front seat, and we would drive 8 hours. And that was just like this, that was my life. And it was constant. And it's so weird to think how many times we did something like that. And, I didn't sleep in the van every night, but I have so many memories of waking up in the van alone, by choice. And sometimes someone else would sleep in the van with me. Like if there was a cat in the apartment where we were crashing, and we were like, someone was allergic. They're like, oh, I can't go in there. But yeah, I think if I started the Swellers today and I had the responsibilities that I had in my 20s, which was nothing, I feel like we could have done 2 tours a year and focused on social media, because that's a thing now. That really helps bands. Like you can get one song that blows up on TikTok and suddenly you have 200 more people at your shows, which is crazy to think that's a thing. But it is. Yeah, I think that we should, in hindsight, we should have slowed down, not took every single tour we were offered, and not book such crazy long tours. It was almost like some kind of panic. Like I think it was in like 2013, we did a house show tour that was like 7 weeks long. And we booked sometimes 2 shows in one day. One day we did 3 shows.
Jesus.
Like it's just honestly not, like looking back, I don't think that I was a healthy person. Like back then, I think, and from the outside, I look like some punk rocker who was like, yeah, DIY till I die. Like, let's book as many shows. I think I was so scared of becoming obsolete or stopping that I just packed it all in because I thought we had to. And again, you know, looking back, it's like, well, that's cool that we did that, but man, were we tired, but we wouldn't admit it, you know? So yeah, I think that when we ended, we just kind of had to. I think we were just like, oh man, we've done a lot. And if we continue, it's just going to be more of the same a lot. And maybe that's when we could have taken our break, but we were so, and I mean, we weren't out there like having a bad time. Things were still going they're fun and great. We liked traveling. But I think for some reason we were like, no, we're not going to just say we're on hiatus. Like, we're not going to say, you know, taking a break and blah, blah, blah. We were just kind of like, nah, well, let's say we're breaking up in a year. I think we need to like put the bookend here and call it. And the only reason we toured for like another year was because like we felt like we needed to say bye to our friends that we made all over the world, which is another weird thing that your brain doesn't prepare you for. You spend 10 years making friends face to face all over the globe that you see once, twice, maybe 3 times a year, and then never again. So many people in my life I probably will never see again in person. Just crazy, you know, like there's so much that as an adult, as a dad, I look back on and I'm like, oh, dude, poor dude. Like, sorry you had to do that. Like, I was having a blast, but looking back, it's like, oh man, that's not normal. Like, that's not a normal life. But, you know, I don't know. And then people are like, oh, would you trade it? You know, I'm like, I don't know, maybe. Like, maybe I should have gone to college. Maybe I should have gotten a normal job, you know? But yeah, it's kind of wild. There's a lot of things that I don't think people realize, you know? No. So I'm hoping to get out. And like, also like Anto and Ryan, I have seen them in 9 years. I've seen them twice, maybe 3 times, which breaks my heart. I'm gonna, I think, see Anto in December. He lives in Brooklyn, New York now. No longer a Canadian. He's an American boy now. So yeah, I'm going to see him and hopefully going to see Ryan this weekend at the Get Up Kids show. Speaking of reunions.
Hey, I'm seeing them Friday in Buffalo.
Oh, excellent. Well, I'll be there Sunday in Detroit. 25 years. And I don't know when this is going to air, but there's
on Monday.
Get Up.
Actually, it'll be the day after you saw the Get Up Kids. This will come out.
Well, that's pretty cool. Well, I might be doing something cool with the Get Up Kids.
Shit.
That I probably shouldn't announce yet, just in case there's going to be a delay. But be on the lookout for something with me and the Get Up Kids.
Nice.
Maybe. But yeah, probably my favorite band. The reason that the Swellers exist and toured, honestly. Seeing them in 2000 opening for Green Day at the Deltaplex.
Ooh.
And I in Grand Rapids. And I knew one song by Get Up Kids. I was in 8th grade. And I sang my heart out. I was right in the front against the barricade. And Mike Dirnt was off to the right of the stage watching the Get Up Kids. And he looked into the crowd and saw me, this little blue-haired 8th grader, singing Mass Pike by the Get Up Kids. And he gave me this look and this nod, like, hell yeah, little dude. Like, you know this band. And I was like, oh my God. And then, yeah, Get Up Kid shows kind of like, all right. And my brother was there too. You know, I think we were just kind of like, whatever that was, however we have to do it, like we got to do that. Like that's what we're going to do. And we kind of did, you know, so it's pretty, and you know, it's kind of weird that we never crossed paths with the Get Up Kids in our band. I think there was a time when they were broken up for like 3 years. And then when they came back,
I think they came back in like 20, or no, actually maybe like 2009, they came back or something.
Yeah. And we were pretty busy from, we were busy from 2009 on pretty intensely, but it's at least cool that I'm crossing paths with them now, you know, like, doing the guitar pedal thing and I'm able to tell them, you know, what they meant to me, you know, without being too much of a punisher. I'm trying to find that line, you know, life is too short to not tell people what their music like meant to you, you know, like I don't want to try to be cool guy and like never say something. So yeah, it's kind of cool to, you know, meet people like that and tell them like, hey, thanks for ruining my life by making me go on tour.
Curse you, Matt Pryor.
It's so true, man. But yeah, I'm excited for that. That'll be great. Good show.
That is very cool. Well, Nick, I mean, just a couple more here for you. I mean, this is,
of course,
an absolute blast. But let's talk about the pedals. I'm still amazed at how much you have done. I mean, huge congrats with Oneder Effects and and now guitars as well.
Thank you.
But I mean, you've been staying extremely busy with that. I mean, when did kind of that all start? How long have you kind of been doing Oneder Effects for now?
Before the first lockdown, kind of before COVID, I picked up the hobby of making a couple pedals here and there, like right before lockdown. Pretty much like a New Year's Eve late night building session. And then I think around March, when the big lockdown happened, I go, well, I guess bands aren't going to be coming into my studio as often. I'm going to make an Instagram for these little pedals that I make, and it's going to be based on my studio called Wonder Studios. We'll call it Oneder Effects. And it'll be like, you know, tools that I make in my studio for studio use, you know. Maybe I'll make one of my own pedals one day with my own circuit and my own art. It'll be like my signature model studio pedal. People started hitting me up like, can you build me a tube screamer? Can you build me a rat? So throughout all the first initial lockdown, started getting orders and requests, and I would post 3 pedals on the Instagram and people would just snatch them up. And I was like, this is cool. And then I got the bug. Then later 2020, I started, you know, like I said, my own circuit boards with my own circuits, with my own art in my own enclosures. And I was like, this is a Oneder Effects original pedal. I had one called the Wonder Drive and then one called the Red Rider Distortion, which Red Rider's coming back. That was a popular one that I discontinued for whatever reason. But yeah, it's going to be back for the holiday season because everybody wants a Red Rider for Christmas. And yeah, I don't know. Made a lot of records in my studio, but at the end of that year, my wife, the accountant, was like, doing our numbers, like, you are a pedal company as your main job. And I was like, that's kind of cool. 2021 was still pretty COVID-y. And I was like, well, I'll keep this pain train rolling. I like that I can make money without having to have people come over and them tell me what they want me to do with their music. I'm like, it's kind of nice. It's a nice change of pace. 2021 was bigger. 2022 was even bigger. And it's just been growing since. And now 2024, it's a tough year for any industry, any small business, music gear companies specifically. I know a bunch it's a down year, but I've been very fortunate this year because I'm doing some really cool collaborations with artists, which I don't know. I hate to like spoil it and like tell everybody that that's the key, but I'm surprised more people don't do that. You get to like make a great pedal that kind of is reminiscent of a band that you dig, and then they promote it to their fans as well. So like Less Than Jake came at me, you know, and Chris was like, let's talk. And then he was like, let's do a ska punk pedal. So the fact that he came to me to ask for that pedal, like I was just beyond flattered. And I was like, that's such a cool idea. Like, why didn't I think of that? So yeah, Less Than Jake pedal killed it. Did a No Effects collab. So Long and Thanks for All the Boost. That was a killer.
That's a great name. That's a great pedal name.
That's why the pedal exists. I came up with the name and I came up with the artwork. I sent it to their merch manager, their main merch guy, and he said, make some for the band, send them to us. We'll see if anybody digs it. I made like 4 of them, sent him that way, and he was like, print them.
Nice.
So yeah, sold 500 pretty fast. Got some extras here and there, that I'm probably going to be parting with. But yeah, I got a pedal with Bo from the band Harm's Way and the Hard Lore podcast. That will be coming out, kind of my first heavy metal offering.
Ooh.
Another band collaboration we might have talked about earlier in this podcast. I got a delay pedal now called Wet Hot American Bummer. So, just continuing with the best names under the sun. And then, yeah, the Red Rider's probably coming back. Like there's just this right now until I think the holidays is going to be the busiest I've ever been as a human being. And luckily I love it and I'm excited for it. And I have too many ideas to not do it. So I do plan on taking a break next year at some point. Like, and I have some friends also that help me build pedals now. I've expanded a little bit. So there might be a time when I say, here's all your potentiometers, here's all your boards, here's a couple rolls of solder. I'm hibernating for 2 months. When I come out, give me, boxes and boxes of pedals so I can sell without having to build them. And, but I say that, but I already have ideas for new stuff in my head floating around right now. So it never ends, but I am really enjoying it. And I feel fortunate to be here.
I mean, a huge congrats doing that. Do you have any, with it kind of being such an organic thing, do you have any goals or things you'd like to still see kind of be done with Wonder Effects, or is this more go with the flow? Because again, I mean, it doesn't sound like you sat down going, I'm going to make a great pedal company and I'm going to work with all these people. Sounds like things kind of fell into place, but you got any goals coming up, or just more of let's see what happens? Yeah.
The let's see what happens thing is definitely true. But also having like a nice line of pedals is something that I think 2025 that's gonna finally wrap up. It's been going to be 5 years of Wonder Effects next year. So nice. I want to have I want to get the artwork and everything sorted to have my nice little dirt section, we'll call it, boost, overdrive, distortion, fuzz. I'm going to have 4 standalone pedals. And I have some of them already, but I have to kind of work on the fuzz a little bit and kind of rebrand the boost, the delay pedal. And then, there might be a phaser or something like that. I'm kind of looking to have every spot on the pedal board of something I would use on the board. And like, I have an offering for that. So not just being like this boutique, like, well, I guess this month I'm making this distortion pedal, snatch it up while you can. I want it to be like, this is Wonder Effects. This is highly curated by a dude that's been on tour forever and in the studio forever. And now I'm making these boxes that I think sound pretty damn good in both applications. Here's the boost, here's the overdrive, here's the distortion, here's the muff, here's the delay, and in addition to that, because like I can send those all out to dealers and things, maybe expand my dealer base. I only have 2 dealers right now. It's kind of cool. It's like a nice little community. But yeah, and then potentially more collaborations or, new versions of the previous ones that I've done. I don't want to turn into like band merch pedal guy. The No Effects pedal was kind of like, this is a merchandise piece. It had nothing to do with the band. It was kind of just like had a cool name, had some cool artwork. I gave them a cut. Thanks, so long. And thanks for, all the, the rest of the money that after the royalties that I paid you. And,
that rolls off too.
Yeah, that didn't fit on the pedal. So I didn't use that. And then, yeah, the Less Than Jake and the HW2, the pedal with Bo from Harm's Way. I'm really excited to see where that takes me. And also expanding the guitar company. like we got a good start right now, got a great guitar shape and a great guitar model called the Sharpshooter. And still a small thing, still figuring things out, but I can see us taking that to some new heights pretty soon. And because I like guitars and pedals. And, if I get bored of pedals, I'm probably going to want to stick to guitars for a minute, just kind of change lanes for a couple months and then, switch back when I need to.
Kind of nice you can do that too. Kind of nice you can go, I'll go work on guitars for a while.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, hopefully I can do that. It's like if pedals are going really well and guitars aren't, like I probably can't go over to that side because my kids got to eat. And that sucks that sometimes your hobbies become your job. Like in my case, any hobby I've ever had became my job. And so now I have no hobbies, but I kind of like my job. So that's cool. So yeah, just play video games in my downtime. That's kind of my only hobby. I can't really get into competitive video gaming as a job. I don't think I'm good enough. So I don't have to worry about that one.
Wait for your 40s. You'll be a competitive gamer. That's waiting for your 40s.
I'm going to be playing Elden Ring online, just like doing weird stuff. I became a nerd too. I used to hate nerds. Used to totally hate nerds and want to stomp nerds. And now I am one. I play role-playing video games. And my wife makes fun of me. Like I'll walk into this cool, beautiful open space in Elden Ring, and my wife's like, "Oh, you got the chalice of Grindor, and you're in Liurnia of the Lakes. Like, better use the ashes of war." And I'm like, "Shut up! This is cool. I'm building a community. Damn it!
This is very sweet."
Yeah, I knew I was a total nerd once I really started caring about that stuff. I'm like, "Oh, what's your build? What's your build in Elden Ring, man?" That's not supposed to be me, but here I am, and I'm proud of it. Damn it.
Nice. Well, Nick, it's fun talking. Looking back in time and also talking about what you're doing now. There's one more. As you look back, where does kind of Ups and Downsizing fall for you in terms of as the guy who wrote them? Where's this kind of sit for you in Swellers records? Do you have any thoughts when you look back on it 15 years? I guess kind of closing remarks here on Ups and Downsizing, if you have any.
I think looking back, I think it's our best record. And I could say that being removed from it quite a bit. Good for Me, I think has some of the best songs on it, and it sounds the best. But there's a few songs on that record that I'm like, we just kind of put those on because of label pressure, or we thought, there's too many fast songs. We want to be a bigger band. We don't want to just be a punk band. We were thinking about that track listing too much. And then The Light Under Closed Doors was just kind of we just kind of wrote whatever we wanted to write, and it was cool, and we were happy. Ups and Downsizing, though, yeah, I feel like that was the record where it was the perfect mix of our melodic pop rock and our aggressive punk rock, and just it was right down the middle of everything that we've done. So I feel like if you wanted to show my band to somebody, I would show them that record and be like, this kind of has a taste of what we used to be like and a little taste of what we sounded like after as well. Kind of if you listen to No Use for a Name, the record More Betterness.
Yeah.
That was kind of the one where it was you can listen to that and get a little taste of their entire discography. Because it was right in the middle. And so was Ups and Downsizing, for us. It's we had an EP and a full length, and then Ups and Downsizing, and then a couple full lengths after that. So yeah, I listened back to that one, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a cool one. Good job.
Great record. It's a really, really good record. It's my favorite Swellers record as well.
Oh, that's cool, man. Thank you.
But so, this was awesome talking about this. But where ought we send people to want to, people want to stay connected with you now? Where do we find Oneder Effects online? Where do we find you? Everything you're doing? Feel free now. Plug away with
oh, sure.
Where to go check out stuff.
Yeah, WRFA.com, and on Instagram at Oneder Effects. And that's it. That's all I got.
Nice and easy.
Yeah, I don't have any personal social media. Because I post enough personal stuff on the Effects page. Oh, that reminds me. I got to post a story of my dogs pooping from earlier. I forgot to post that. I used to do that a lot, and then I kind of dropped the ball. That used to be fun. Some people literally have come up to me and they're just like, "Hey, I really like your pedals. Like, I love the posts about your dogs pooping." And I'm like, "Great! I'm glad I could be of service." But yeah, Oneder Effects. There's a newsletter that you can sign up for on the website, and that kind of I don't write too often on there, but if there's like deals or a discount code or something coming up, that actually reminds me once again, I've been so busy. I haven't been able to think about this stuff. Yeah, there's so much coming up in November. November is going to be, I don't want to say make or break the company. It's going to break me and make the company. So it'll be great for pedals, great for pedals. And then I'm going to need a nappy. That's for sure. Like a nap, like a sleeping nap, not like a nappy, that's what they call a diaper in England. But I might need a diaper if I'm being honest.
I'm going to need a diaper and a nap now.
If I have to solder that much without getting up, I might shit my pants. You don't know.
It sounds like a good time to keep tabs on you. It sounds like you're staying very busy, including here as we go into November, a month away from now.
Yeah, but watch my downward spiral into insanity this holiday season. It's going to be
ups and down spirals.
Ups and down spirals. It's the real dark version. It gets a little trippy. It's going to be great.
Well, as we close this out, Nick, if people are listening to the podcast and all that, it's ending, but the radio show is 3 hours long. So if you're listening to the radio show, we're playing Ups and Downsizing front to back after this. So maybe maybe someone just heard us talk about a record they've never heard for like an hour and a half, and now they're going to hear the record. So
excellent.
Any closing remarks, anything else to let the good people know before we close this out and get into some music if they're listening to the radio show?
Well, if you listen to it, I hope you like it, and I'm sorry that you got into us way after we stopped being a band. I've been hearing a lot of that lately, and I kind of feel bad about it. Yeah, just it's cool. It's cool that something from so long ago can still bring some happiness to someone somewhere, So it's nice that music is out there floating in the cyberspace. Yeah.
Well, nice. I mean, Nick, again, I've loved this record since 2009. Very cool to talk about it and now play it for people. But yeah, I'm Anthony Merchant talking to Nick Diener of the Swellers, of Oneder Effects. And the man stays busy. Lots to go stay connected with him with. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. This is the Power Chord Hour. Thank you so much for listening.